Trillions died choking in ash, as human warships obliterated 100 Xenos worlds, because one little human girl went missing. The humans are insane. Ambassador Zalek's hands shook as he paced. High Diplomat Orin stayed standing by the window. They're not insane, just protective of their young. Zalek stopped, snapping his head around. Overreacting for a single child? Our entire confederation burned and shattered for what? A dispute over custody? I told you they'd do it, Orin said. I've dealt with humans, you haven't. By the sacred moons, why would they go so far? Orin grabbed a data tablet. Because Kazir took one of theirs, stole a girl right out of her bed. Kazir said he needed to study human DNA, to stop our genetic collapse. Without permission, humans don't accept diplomatic immunity as an excuse for crimes. Zalek sucked in sharp breaths. They gave us 2 of their days, that's all, before raising everything. Plenty of time to return the kit, but Kazir refused. Orin showed Zalek the tablet, articles of smoking ruins and gutted stations. So they came for her, and made sure we couldn't steal from them again. Genocide over one captive, it's madness. Orin put a hand on Zalek's shoulder. There's a human saying to fuck around and find out. We fucked around. Now we're finding out. Zalek stared at the casualty counts. What do we do? How do we stop this? Give them the girl, give them Kazir. Beg the humans for mercy. Will they show any, after we took their child? Orin watched distant explosions pepper the skyline. If not, they'll kill us all for her. Orin sighed. Prime Minister Zorval tried to reason with them, offered to hand over the girl and throw Kazir's entire team in prison, even said we'd issue a formal apology and swear we'd never do it again. Zalek's eyes widened. That's more than fair. They'd be fools not to accept such terms. Ambassador Bryant didn't see it that way. You know his reputation. The man's as rigid as a steel beam. Told Zorval that we violated the Galactic Treaty of Sentient Rights by letting this happen in the first place. Said that gave the humans carte blanche to do whatever the hell they wanted, to keep their people safe and make sure we never tried this again. What? That treaty's just a formality. No one actually expects anyone to go to war over it. Orin shook his head. The humans do. They take that stuff dead seriously. Individual rights are sacred to them. Doesn't matter if it's a child or an adult. Anyone screws with that, and they come out swinging. But to risk a galactic war over a mere treaty violation, it's insanity. Not to them. See, humans have this deep-rooted belief in justice. To them, there's no such thing as just a treaty. An agreement is an agreement, and if you break it, you pay the price. Doesn't matter how small the infraction is. They figure, if they let us slide on this, we'll think we can walk all over them. Zalek slumped into a chair, head in his hands. So there's no reasoning with them? No chance for diplomacy? Oh, they used to have a name for this kind of thing back on ancient Earth. Mutually assured destruction. The idea was, if both sides could annihilate each other, neither would dare make a move. That doesn't sound like a solution. More like 2 Vecnar rats in a cage waiting to tear each other apart. Zalek's eyes widened in disbelief. What's the latest? Have the humans backed down at all? Orin shook his head grimly. I'm afraid not. In fact, things have escalated. Our intelligence reports indicate that as the 48-hour deadline approached, the United Earth Federation mobilized their entire fleet. Their entire fleet? Zalek gasped. How many ships are we talking about? Over 1,000 warships, Orin replied somberly. All headed straight for Iconian space, ready for a full-scale invasion. Zalek felt his stomach drop. 1,000 warships. That's impossible. They can't possibly have that kind of firepower. That's not all, Orin continued. Our spies also uncovered evidence that the humans have developed a new weapon, something called a quantum cascade device. A quantum cascade device? What in the cosmos is that? From what we've gathered, it's capable of destabilizing a planet's core, causing it to explode. Complete and utter destruction on a planetary scale. Zalek sank back in his chair, his face pale. They wouldn't. They couldn't possibly use such a thing. Orin's expression was grim. Prime Minister Zorval didn't want to take that chance. Faced with the very real possibility of total annihilation, he made the decision to unconditionally surrender. "Surrender?" Zalek sputtered. "We surrendered to the humans?" "We had no choice." Zorval agreed to comply with all their demands. Kazir and his team were arrested and handed over to the humans for trial. The girl, Lily Saunders, was returned to her family unharmed. Zalek shook his head in disbelief. "I can't believe it. The mighty Iconian Confederation, brought to its knees by a single species." "That's not all," Orin added. "We also agreed to pay reparations to the girl's family and the United Earth Federation, and we have to submit to regular inspections now to ensure we're complying with the Galactic Treaty of Sentient Rights." Zalek stared at Orin, stunned by the severity of the consequences. "Do you think they would have actually gone through with it, using that quantum weapon on us?" Orin met his gaze solemnly. "I have no doubt. The humans have a history of using atomic weapons against their own cities, back in their ancient conflicts. When they decide to take a stand, they commit to it fully." Zalek rubbed his temples, trying to process the magnitude of what had transpired. He turned to Orin with a heavy sigh. "What of Kazir and his team? Surely the humans showed them some measure of mercy, given our surrender." Orin shook his head grimly. "I'm afraid not. The human trial was as swift as it was brutal. Every member of Kazir's team was found guilty of crimes against humanity. They've all been sentenced to life imprisonment on the humans' most secure prison planet." Life imprisonment? Zalek's eyes widened in disbelief. For a scientific experiment gone wrong. "It was more than that to the humans," Orin said solemnly. "They saw it as a violation of their most fundamental rights. And Kazir, as the mastermind behind it all, received the harshest sentence of the lot. Solitary confinement for the rest of his days. No chance of parole or release." Zalek slumped back in his seat, the weight of Orin's words hitting him like a physical blow. Did Kazir have anything to say for himself before they locked him away forever?" Orin nodded, his expression darkening. "He did. A warning to the rest of the galaxy about the dangers of underestimating human resolve, about how far they're willing to go to protect their own." He paused, meeting Zalek's gaze. "It's a lesson we won't soon forget." Zalek was silent for a long moment, his mind reeling. How did this happen, Orin? How did Kazir and his team operate right under our noses, without anyone knowing what they were up to? "That's what our government is trying to figure out," Orin replied. "They've launched a full-scale investigation into the matter. Several high-ranking officials have already been arrested for their involvement, or for turning a blind eye. It's led to a major shake-up in our intelligence agencies." Zalek nodded slowly, trying to find some glimmer of hope amidst the devastation. Perhaps some good can come from this in the end. Now that the humans have seen our willingness to make amends, to hold our own people accountable, maybe it can be the start of a new era of cooperation between our civilizations. But Orin's expression was doubtful. "I wouldn't count on it," he cautioned. "The humans, they're not like us, Zalek. They don't forget a slight or forgive one easily. What we did, what we allowed to happen, it's going to take a lot more than a few arrests and some reparations to make things right." He turned to gaze out the window once more, at the smoke still rising from the ruins of their cities. "We're going to have to work hard and work long to rebuild what we've lost. Not just our infrastructure, but the trust we shattered. It's going to be an uphill battle every step of the way." Zalek furrowed his brow, a new thought occurring to him. "Orin, what about the other galactic civilizations? Do you think they'll take notice of what the humans have done here?" Orin nodded emphatically. "They already have, Zalek. The Galactic Council convened an emergency session to discuss the incident and its ramifications." "The Galactic Council?" Zalek's eyes widened. "But they've always seen the humans as a minor player in galactic affairs. Why would they suddenly take such interest?" "Because the humans have proven they're no minor player," Orin said gravely. "They've shown they're a major power, willing to use force to defend their interests. The Council can't ignore that." Zalek leaned forward, his interest piqued. What do you think will happen now? How will this change things on a galactic scale? It's going to shift the balance of power, that's for certain, Orin replied. Other civilizations will be scrambling to either ally with the humans or find ways to contain them. No one wants to be on their bad side, not after this. And their military capabilities, those quantum cascade devices. Zalek shuddered at the thought. They've sent shockwaves through the scientific community, Orin confirmed. Every major civilization will be racing to develop similar technologies now. It's an arms race, and the humans have a head start. As Zalek sat back, the weight of Orin's words sinking in. What does this mean for us, Orin, for the Iconian Confederation and our relations with the humans? Orin sighed, a hint of worry creasing his features. Only time will tell, Zalek, but one thing's for sure. Zalek's brow furrowed as he considered Orin's words. Speaking of the girl, Lily Saunders, what became of her? After everything she endured at the hands of Kazir and his team? A slight smile tugged at the corners of Orin's mouth. Now there's a ray of light amidst all this darkness. Upon her return to Earth, young Lily was hailed as a hero, a symbol of human resilience in the face of unspeakable adversity. A hero? Zalek's eyes widened, but she was just a child caught up in events beyond her control. Precisely, Orin nodded. And yet she survived. She endured. The United Earth Federation recognized that and awarded her their highest civilian honor, the Star of Terror. Impressive, Zalek murmured. I assume she was also given the best medical care to help her cope with the trauma of her ordeal. The very best, Orin confirmed. Both physical and psychological. Humans have made great strides in the field of mental health, you know. They have treatments, therapies, ways of helping even the most traumatized individuals heal and recover. Zalek was silent for a moment, contemplating this. It's quite a contrast, isn't it? The way they've treated the girl compared to how our government dealt with Kazir and the others. It is, Orin agreed solemnly. It speaks to a fundamental difference in our values, I think. Humans place such a high value on individual life and well-being. They celebrate and honor those who have suffered and survived. And we? Zalek asked, though he suspected he already knew the answer. We focus more on the collective, on the greater good of the Confederation as a whole. Individual needs and traumas, they are often seen as secondary. Zalek nodded slowly. Perhaps that is something we need to reassess in light of all this. Maybe we could learn from the humans' example, their compassion. I think you may be right, Orin said. This whole incident, it's been a wake-up call in more ways than one. It's shown us not just the humans' resolve and capabilities, but also the flaws and shortcomings in our own society. Zalek turned to gaze out the window once more, his mind churning with new thoughts and possibilities. The path ahead for the Iconian Confederation was uncertain, that much was clear. But maybe, just maybe, some good could come from this catastrophe, if they could learn from it, grow from it. He turned back to Orin, a new determination in his eyes. On that note, Zalek said, leaning forward with renewed curiosity, what was the political fallout like within the United Earth Federation? Surely an event of this magnitude must have had repercussions. Orin nodded, his expression thoughtful. Indeed it did. The incident had a profound impact on human politics. The ruling party, the Terran Unity Party, saw a massive surge in popularity due to their handling of the crisis. The Terran Unity Party? Zalek inquired. I'm not familiar with them. They're a relatively new political force, Orin explained, but they've been gaining ground rapidly. Their leader, Prime Minister Elena Sato, was the one who authorized the mobilization of the human fleet and the threat of war against us. Zalek's eyes widened. A bold move. How was it received by the human public? They loved it, Orin said simply. Sato was hailed as a decisive and strong leader, someone willing to do whatever it takes to protect human interests. In the elections that followed, the Terran Unity Party won a landslide victory. Sato secured a second term in office with ease. Zalek leaned back, processing this information. Interesting. So this incident has united the humans politically. In a way, yes, Orin confirmed. Humans have traditionally been divided along national and ideological lines, but this seems to have awakened a sense of common purpose, a realization that they're all in this together on the galactic stage. Zalek was silent for a moment, considering the implications. Do you think this trend will continue? Will the humans keep asserting themselves in galactic affairs? Orin met his gaze, his expression grave. I have no doubt. This incident, I believe it's awakened a sense of destiny among humans. They see themselves as major players now, and they're not wrong. He paused, choosing his next words carefully. I predict that the United Earth Federation will become increasingly assertive in its dealings with other civilizations. They'll use their military and economic power to shape events, to ensure that their interests are protected. Zalek felt a chill run down his spine. And us? The Iconian Confederation? Are we prepared to deal with this new emboldened humanity? Orin sighed, and in that sound was a world of concern. Honestly, I don't know. We have much to learn and much to adapt to. This is a new era of galactic politics, and the humans, they're going to be at the forefront of it. Zalek nodded slowly, his mind churning with the weight of Orin's words. The future, it seemed, was a human one, and the Iconian Confederation would need to find its place in it, one way or another. He turned back to Orin, ready to voice his next question. Zalek paused, his mind still reeling from the implications of humanity's rise to prominence. He turned to Orin, a new question forming on his lips. What about the Galactic Council? How did they respond to the incident with the humans? Orin leaned back, his expression thoughtful. The Council was in a difficult position. They couldn't ignore what had happened, but they also couldn't risk alienating the humans further. After much deliberation, they decided to send a high-level delegation to Earth, Orin revealed. They wanted to meet with Prime Minister Sato and other human leaders to try and establish a new framework for galactic relations. Zalek's eyes widened. A delegation? Who did they send? Zorol, the respected Altarian diplomat, led the mission, Orin replied. The Council hoped that his experience and tact would help smooth things over with the humans. And what was the goal of this delegation? Zalek inquired. They wanted to recognize the humans' emerging role in galactic affairs, Orin explained, while also setting clear boundaries and guidelines for conduct. It was a delicate balance to strike. Zalek nodded slowly. I can imagine. How did the negotiations go? Orin sighed. Tense and complex. Both sides had to make significant concessions. Indeed. Emboldened by their victory over us, they initially demanded a leading role on the Council and the right to intervene militarily in any situation they deemed a threat to galactic peace. Zalek's eyes bulged. They what? The Council must have pushed back hard against that. They did, Orin confirmed. The Council was wary of ceding too much power to a single civilization. They insisted on maintaining the existing balance of power. So how did they resolve the impasse? It took weeks of intense discussions, Orin said, but eventually a compromise was reached. Zalek leaned forward. What were the terms? The humans would be granted a permanent seat on the Council, Orin revealed, and the right to veto any decision that directly affected their interests. A significant concession, Zalek murmured. In exchange, Orin continued, they agreed to abide by the Council's rulings and to use military force only as a last resort. Zalek sat back, processing this information. Impressive. The humans proved to be skilled negotiators. They did, Orin agreed. They knew how to leverage their position. Do you think the agreement will hold? Zalek asked, a hint of worry in his voice. Orin was silent for a moment, considering his response. Only time will tell, he said finally, his tone a mix of hope and uncertainty. But the agreement represents a significant step forward in human galactic relations. As the weight of their discussion settled upon them, Zalek turned to Orin with a final probing question. What about the long-term effects, Orin? How has this incident changed the Iconian Confederation at its core? Orin leaned back, his eyes distant as he pondered the query. It's had a profound impact, Zalek. The actions of Kazir and his team, they forced us to look in the mirror, to question the very values and beliefs that have guided our civilization for centuries. Zalek nodded slowly, understanding dawning on his features. A period of introspection, then, of soul-searching. Precisely, Orin confirmed. Many Iconians were shocked, appalled by what Kazir had done. It sparked a movement, a call for change. They called themselves the New Dawn. The New Dawn? Zalek repeated, his interest piqued. What did they stand for? A fundamental restructuring of our society, Orin explained. Along more humanistic lines, they argued that we had become too focused on scientific achievement, on material progress, that we had lost sight of empathy, compassion, individual rights. Zalek leaned forward, his brow furrowed. And who led this movement? Who gave voice to these ideas? A philosopher, Orin replied. A visionary, some would say. His name was Zorval. He and his followers advocated for a new social contract, one that would prioritize the well-being of all Iconians, not just the elite. Zalek was silent for a moment, processing this information. I imagine the establishment didn't take kindly to this new dawn, saw it as a threat to their power, their way of life. Orin chuckled dryly. You imagine correctly. There was significant opposition at first, but as more and more Iconians began to embrace Zorval's ideas, the government was forced to take notice. Prime Minister Zorval, no relation to the philosopher, mind you, gave a historic speech before Parliament, announced a series of sweeping reforms aimed at transforming our society. Zalek's eyes widened. Reforms? What kind of reforms? A Bill of Rights, Orin said, counting off on his fingers. An independent judiciary, a more equitable economic system. It was ambitious, to say the least. As Zalek sat back, marveling at the scope of these changes. Do you think it will work, Orin? Do you think these reforms will succeed? Orin was quiet for a long moment, his gaze once again drifting to the window and the shattered cityscape beyond. Change is never easy, Zalek. It's a process, a journey. There will be setbacks, challenges, those who resist, who cling to the old ways. He turned back to Zalek, and in his eyes was a glimmer of something that might have been hope. But I believe we've taken an important first step in building a better future for ourselves and for the galaxy as a whole. The humans, they've shown us what's possible, what we can aspire to. Zalek nodded, a sense of purpose settling over him. The path ahead would be difficult, he knew, but it was a path they had to walk, for the sake of their civilization and for all the civilizations that shared the stars. As Orin and Zalek stood, ready to take their leave, a sudden chime from Orin's communicator broke the silence. He glanced down, his face darkening as he read the message scrolling across the screen. Zalek, noticing the change in his colleague's demeanor, furrowed his brow. Orin, what is it? What's happened? New Eden? Zalek repeated, trying to place the name. That's on the edge of our space, isn't it? Zalek staggered back, his hand coming to his chest. 1,000,000, who would do such a thing? Iconian supremacists, Orin spat, disgust etched into every line of his face. Radicals who opposed the New Dawn reforms. They saw the humans as a threat to our way of life. Zalek shook his head, trying to process the enormity of the tragedy. How did the humans respond? Swiftly and without mercy, Orin replied. Within hours, they launched a retaliatory strike using their quantum cascade devices, wiped out the supremacists' headquarters and all known bases. Quantum cascade devices on Iconian soil. Zalek's eyes widened in horror. The death toll must be over 100,000, Orin confirmed. A clear message. The humans will not tolerate attacks on their citizens. Zalek sank into a chair, his legs no longer able to support him. What does this mean for our relations with the humans? Orin sighed heavily. They've reached a new low. Our government has suspended all diplomatic ties and recalled our ambassador, and the humans have made it clear they won't rest until all responsible are brought to justice. Even if it means war with the entire Confederation? Zalek asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Orin met his gaze, the weight of the galaxy seeming to rest on his shoulders. Even then... Zalek fell silent, the implications of Orin's words sinking in. The incident with Lily Saunders, which had seemed like a turning point, now felt like a mere prelude to a much larger, much more devastating conflict. As the two diplomats prepared to part ways, the future they had once looked to with hope now seemed uncertain and perilous. The road ahead would be long and fraught with difficulties, and the very fate of the galaxy hung in the balance. You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.